We've been engaged in a long-term project, about 25 years now, trying to understand the ecological interactions that underlie Lyme disease, the variable Lyme disease risk. The risk of Lyme disease is not constant, either in space or in time. There are hot spots and cold spots. There are really bad years and not so bad years. And we've been trying to understand why, what drives that variability. And a lot of it has to do, interestingly enough, with the white-footed mouse. This mouse is a very widespread organism in forests of the eastern half of North America. Ticks that feed on a mouse have a very high probability of surviving, whereas if they feed on some other host, they often get groomed off and killed in the process. Mice are not fastidious creatures. They just don't bother grooming very much. The other key feature of white-footed mice is that for reasons that we're still trying to understand, they are a high-quality source of infection with the Lyme disease pathogen and other tick-borne pathogens as well. So ticks that feed on a mouse not only survive better, but they're much more likely to get infected with the things that can make us sick. So more mice means more infected ticks. One might ask the question, well, what determines how many mice there are out there? And there are a lot of answers to it, but there are two really important ones that we've discovered. One is acorn production. The other is how many predators there are. When there's a really good acorn year, the mice survive the winter very well, and they start breeding really early, and they reach a population peak the summer following a good acorn year. So one of the other features of mouse population abundance that's fairly well predictive is how many predators there are, particularly things like foxes and bobcats, and also we suspect raptors like owls. So in places where foxes are living, the infection prevalence in the ticks, so the proportion of ticks that are dangerous to us, tends to be strongly suppressed. Well, humans are doing a couple of different things to influence their own risk of getting sick. When we fragment natural habitat like forest, we eliminate some elements of the vertebrate community. We reduce diversity. And the species that tend to disappear tend to be the larger-bodied species that are more predatory. There are others, things like opossums and skunks and bobcats, that attract hungry ticks away from mice. And the ticks that feed on those other species often either get killed or fail to get infected and therefore are not dangerous to us. The other thing we do is more of a human behavioral influence. When we start to fragment the forest to create housing developments, we then go ahead and plunk our houses down right in the hot zone, placing our families right in harm's way in this sort of perverse process, an unintended one, where we increase risk in the environment and then expose ourselves to that increased risk by placing our backyards right next to these small and fragmented forested areas. We know that Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases are spreading. That's without question. It's happening in the US, it's happening in Canada, in Europe as well. And we only have a partial explanation as to why they're spreading. A number of people have implicated climate change, and some of the northward spread and some of the westward spread is correlated with climate change. But we have a lot of work to do to figure out what is it about a warming climate. One hypothesis that's been proposed is that an important source of mortality in tick populations are cold snaps in the winter, that ticks lead a very slow life cycle for such a tiny creature. Their life cycle plays itself out over about 2 years. And over those 2 years, there are 3 different stages that need to find an animal host on which to take a blood meal. So as the total warmth of an environment increases, they may be more likely to be able to invade. And there is some evidence for that being the case.